Those who grew up with a good father. What was the most important thing you learned from him? You are the only person you have to live with for the rest of your life. In other words, take responsibility for what you do, learn how to move past your mistakes, and realize that your actions have consequences. My great GMA always said, wherever you go, self goes with you. Wherever you go, there you are. My dad taught me to always be kind. Kindness isn't loud. It doesn't need to be stated. It should just be inherent in everything you do. You don't have to like everyone or treat them well if they don't treat you well. But you should try to approach everyone with the same kindness you'd wish they'd give you. Same. While it was never literally taught, he has always been a role model in how he treated me and others with kindness and empathy. Word. I only ever saw my father angry once. He had such a calm and kind temperament. If it was easy, everyone would do it. This is what I have to remind myself when my job gets real tough. Everyone in my family loves to quit when the going gets tough, and it's something I've really had to work hard to fight against. When things get tough, learn to rest, not to quit. If you don't know how to make things better, just listen. Boy, was he right. Not enough people know how to do this, because it is a hard skill. Active listening is not easy. I found out the same people who require people listening to them are really freaking bad at it. Either that or people truly want to hear standard "don't worry it will get better" phrases. In that case, I'll just accept that I'm bad at it, because hearing that when I struggle instantly makes me resent the other person. And as someone who struggled with depression, I actively try to avoid using a phrase of this kind. To kids, time equals love. Exactly. My dad was always teaching me different things and doing all kind of activities with me. I was only seeing him one weekend on 2 while my mom had me the rest of the time, and I actually don't really remember doing anything at all with my mom besides 2 vacations we had together. But my dad, I remember he showed me how to ride a bike, do rollerblades, hiking, how to skate, skiing, gardening, going to bookstores or antique stores and more. I remember much more clearly the days me and my dad did different activities and actually spent time doing stuffs together, and I still have a really good relationship with him right now. It also developed my curiosity to try new things, and we still go on bike ride together once every summer, even though he's 73 now, and I still love gardening with him, and we exchange books these days too. Edit. Woo. Thanks for my first gold. I'm going through a rough time in life right now, and knowing this gives me a lot of hope and joy. My only worry in this world is to have a smart, developed baby boy to continue to grow to a great man one day, and to always know I love him. Thank you for replying. If you ever feel like you have a problem, just know you can live a full happy life without alcohol. He couldn't control it, and neither could I. He gave it up so he could have his son in his life. I gave it up because of his example. My great-grandfather and grandfather both died due to alcoholism. My dad decided he wasn't going down that route, so never drinks. Seriously, I've never once seen him take so much as a sip, and he made sure all his kids knew it was in our genes, knew the stories, etc. I was never a teetotaler, but it was fine for me until I lost my wife and kids one morning a bit over 5 years ago. I can't imagine not drinking myself to sleep every night now. And when I have to, it's fucking miserable. Anyhow, point is, not you, but crack. Anyone else reading? If you know you're likely predisposed to it, don't start or give it up before it becomes your medication. Edit. To everyone commenting and ming me. I don't want sympathy or help. I appreciate it, but my objective was to try to be a good father and warn off others from my path. Goddamn man, I'm so sorry to hear that. I came into this thread to share my story of pain, but you have helped me to gain some perspective. Bless you, and I hope you are able to find peace. Feel free to drop a PM if you ever need to talk. To always make your loved ones a priority. Make it your purpose. My dad worked hard to give us a comfortable life and more opportunities than most. And after what I can only assume was a long and tiring day, The first thing he'd do was sit and watch cartoons with me and my brothers while asking us about our day. And when he was forced to quit his job and decided to start up his own company, go on for half a year without income, I can only imagine how stressful it was to be so uncertain about the future while providing for a family of 6. I was slightly young, but I never knew anything was wrong. He never let it show. And even though he worked probably 10 hours a day, he always took the time to ask me how I was doing and go to every important event with us. My dad was and is a superhero. Always will be. The next thing I'd say I learned from him was patience. Whenever he was upset with me or thought there was something up, he'd ask me about it and wait until I was done with my side before saying anything. Really made me feel heard and less worried to tell him something, even when I knew it's not what he'd like to hear. To have such a father. Man, I'd take any of these father figures. All mine was a series of things I actively strive not to do or unlearn. To appreciate nature. The power of sitting in silence and looking at the night sky. Update. Thanks for all the love. I never expected this kind of response. I think my dad would be amazed at how something so simple made a huge difference. Stay curious. My dad taught me to indulge my love for learning. Want to read a history of the Aztecs at 6 years old? He took me to the library and we got a real history book and he helped explain what I had a hard time reading. Want to help in the garage? He taught me all the tools and taught me how to clean them and oil them and how to use them. He always took me seriously and answered every question. He was my greatest teacher and my biggest defender and my rock. I lost him in 2003 and I have missed him every minute since then. How I raised my kids has a whole lot to do with how he raised me. My dad told me that he would pay for any reading material I wanted. It didn't have to come out of my allowance. My parents had the same policy. If I wanted junk food, movie tickets, etc., I had to use my allowance. But if I wanted a book, they'd pay for it. I couldn't go nuts because we were far from rich. But book fair days were good days. We also went to the library every Saturday morning. Be kind. Be polite, and saying you'll be somewhere on time means 10 minutes early. My dad always says that about being on time. I think about that advice when I'm late for something, which is way too often. One of my teachers for Air Force Junior ROTC was a retired Chief Master Sergeant. He always said 5 minutes early is 5 minutes late. That has stuck with me to this day, especially because my dad always family last name, time and was 10 to 45 minutes late. My favorite quote came from the early 2000s. He died 11 years ago. If the way this world works ever starts to make sense to you, you need to start worrying about yourself. Apostrophe. My dad would say that his dad told him that if things won't make sense if you didn't pay attention. My dad told me that the opposite would be true by the time I grew up. Right, he was. I learned a lot from my dad when I was growing up. He was working in a wastewater plant when I was about 7 years old when I got the best advice I've received my whole life. I said, "Dad, that's poopy," when he was cleaning a screen off, and he just looked at me and said, "Just remember that the shit doesn't wash off with some soap on a lot of jobs." That's a pretty great one-liner. I bet he thought it up in advance and was like, "Ducky, yeah. Here goes," when you gave him the opening. I learned how to be selfless, how to feed everyone else before I sit down, how to enjoy taking care of someone. I learned how to grow vegetables. I learned how to fix a sink or egg something together if I need to. I learned diplomacy and patience and practicality. I learned to pay attention to what sounds my car is making, how it feels when it turns, or when I let go of the wheel. I learned resilience and perseverance. I learned that I should work hard and do the best I can every time I can, and that's all I can do. He taught me responsibility and morals, regardless of religion or politics. He taught me how to chop parsley and cook steak, how to fry potatoes for breakfast, and how to slice tomatoes thin. My father is an immigrant, an engineer, a practical but sensitive and caring man. I wouldn't be who I am, or have what I do without him. Everything I am, or will be, is owed to him. and my mother, who is equally magnanimous. Your dad sounds like a good man. Your beautiful description of him reminds me of a Raymond Carver poem. Late fragment. And did you get what I wanted from this life? Even so, I did. And what did you want? To call myself beloved. To feel myself beloved on the earth. Lefty Loosey. Righty tighty edit. Holy shit, my first award. I'll forward it to my dad. Thanks, kind stranger. Measure twice. Cut once is what I was going to say. Yep. My dad does both woodworking and sewing, and this is basically his life's motto at this point. Curiosity. Just being eager to learn how stuff works. In general, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. I just like to observe things and wonder things about them. Might sound banal, but a lot of people seem to lack this. My father does the same, and I started doing this lately. 21 meters. He would literally go and start a conversation with random group of workers in a construction site and start asking them details about what they're doing and how, etc. He learned many essential skills just by observing, even though he has no interest in that specific field. He just does it. And when it came in handy mostly is when it comes to fixing something about the house. We rarely call a guy to do work for us. My father believes he can do it, and he does. That confident curiosity is incredibly beneficial. Most folks like talking about their skills. All it takes is a prying mind to get them to share. My boss taught me this by pulling over and talking NG to road/bridge crews and asking good questions. Don't be an idiot changed my life. Whenever I'm about to do something, I think, would an idiot do that? If the answer is yes, I do not do that thing. Compounding interest. Dad hitting me with a 12% APR on my allowance. He taught me to love nature and animals. He taught me not to waste my time on liars and idiots. He taught me how to change a tire. He taught me unconditional love. I was a bit of a duck up as a teenager, and he was always there to tow my car, drive me to the airport, and give me a big hug whenever I needed it. And most of all, by the way he treated my mom, with love, respect and admiration, so that I recognized a good man when I saw one. The respect part is so important. My dad taught me that too. He and my mum were like best friends. Real duo that worked things out as partners. The sweetest thing is that they'd both watch poetry readings on TV and start crying. And sometimes they'd stay up till 3 to 4 AM and discuss politics. In all their 20 odd years of marriage, I saw them argue maybe twice. If it counts, I learned not to emotionally and physically abuse my kids from my father. I'm the man and father I'm today because I swore I would be all things that my father was not. Responsibility, accountability and love are 3 things I value highly. I was literally just talking about this yesterday. The only good thing my dad provided me with was an example of everything not to do. This thread means a lot to me. I see my dad in a lot of these positive comments, and he passed away earlier this year. I'm just sitting here crying, thinking about my hero. I lost mine 3 years ago. He was my best friend. RIP. Care to share a memory? Life is not about success, attaining things, status, etc. Those things have a place, but they shouldn't be your main focus. Instead, concentrate on being a better version of yourself. Grow, learn, be honest with people, and be honest with yourself, which is harder, I know. Cultivate real relationships with people. Take care of, and be grateful for the ones you love. It's okay to fail, but it's not okay to not try. My dad taught the same, but added learn how to let go of irritation. If you care about everything, you'll have a heart attack before 40 feet. No matter what, never judge anything on appearance alone. My dad was in Vietnam as an infantryman. He has seen some shit. Growing up, whenever the situation called for it, he would always say never panic. If you panic, you're dead. I always thought he was exaggerating and thought sure thing. Dad, when I was barely 19, I was in Iraq. A rocket hit our barracks roof. The power went out. I cold tear shit. And there was dust and smoke in the air, making it difficult to breathe and see. Then I could hear him in my head say never panic. If you panic, you're dead. And here I am. 13 years later. Married. 3 kids. I found myself telling my family after an EMS of what would have been a horrible car accident while driving home from Florida last year to never panic. Because if you panic, you're dead. When I was barely 19, I was in Iraq. I think Americans take for granted that we have a whole group of people that raise their hands up and say if a situation comes where we are in danger, I will die so that you can live. And forget that these are human beings. Sons, daughters, fathers, mothers. People with lives and families. Actual humans. Yes, in the recent past we've sent you into places where you probably shouldn't have been sent. But that's not on you. That's on us. Thank you for your service. Hey, thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe.